Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday and day 2 of DrupalCon Barcelona. Uh, Welcome to the Admin UI redesign process. So I'm Jen Witkowski. I'm Associate Design Director at Lullabot. I currently live in Buffalo, New York, which is in the United States, about 20 minutes from Niagara Falls. It's beautiful, by the way, Niagara Falls. If you've never been, highly recommend you make the trip. I love the outdoors, so hiking, camping, bonfires, and because I'm a designer, I'm all things pretty. I love all things pretty. I also like to tend to walk while I present, so I'm going to try very, very hard not to walk away from the microphone. And I'll pass it off to Stephanie.
All right, good morning. I'm Stephanie Ganser, Senior UI Designer at Lullabot, alongside Jen here. I reside in Bluegrass, Iowa, also in the United States, with my husband and my 2 kiddos. Also like the great outdoors, like Jen said, when weather allows in Iowa, since it's very temperamental. But we do like kayaking, camping, and love a good home organization project. So give me a messy closet, love to organize. But on that note, speaking of organization, I'm going to pass along to Jen for some admin UI talk.
So just for some clarification, Stephanie and I are currently designers on the Drupal Admin UI project. There's a bunch of designers along with us that are on this project, so it's not only us two. And Christina Chumas, who will hopefully be arriving pretty soon, has been the lead on this project. And so a lot of times she's involved in those higher level meetings that we're not involved in because we don't have to be involved. And so this whole presentation is about the process of the design of how our team kind of came together to help out with the Drupal Admin UI project and all the things that we did along the way. So I'm going to start out with actually describing what the project is. So it was a project focused on making big layout changes to both the Drupal Admin UI interface. This both included UX and UI updates, so that's user interface and user experience. I'll use those acronyms throughout the presentation. That's what those acronyms mean. But the idea was to make these updates to make a better experience for the different persona types that use the Drupal Admin UI. So when I talk about those persona types, I'm talking about the site builder, developer, content editors, people who use Drupal day to day for different tasks. The main goal started out to rethink how the toolbar, top bar, and the settings tray are all displayed and organized within the Admin UI interface, with the secondary goal of focusing on the form elements and how they were displayed on the screen. Since then, and this is kind of like an ongoing joke between Stephanie and I, we'll talk more about this, but the project has morphed into many different parts since we had began this work a few years ago. So our initial goals had started out that we wanted to reconfigure and enhance the design specifically of the navigation. Just updating the navigation in the Drupal Admin UI would just greatly improve the interface overall. We also wanted to take a step back and take a look at the entire user experience and user interface design of the entire Admin UI interface to make it more modern and follow more conventional patterns. And also, there are a lot of great things that we had noticed that worked in Gin that we wanted to bring those in and build upon them. But then Starshot happened, and the Drupal brand got a refresh with a new marketing approach, which looks great, by the way. But this all happened while we were in the middle of this. And so our goals really shifted. So now our goals are to explore methods to harmonize the existing neutral tone of the design system with the more distinctive marketing approach. We also want to create an initial design system for Drupal CMS using Gin, while also identifying areas of improvement with the design system itself. And something new happened while we were putting together this presentation. So the navigation for Admin UI also got a track in Starshot. So we've been kind of circling back around to some work that we had left behind on that to focus on the Starshot initiative and to continue with some of that navigation module work. So before we dive deep into the Drupal admin redesign, we're just going to do a very brief history of how the admin UI has morphed to where it is now. So basically what we want to do is we want to take a step back, look at past admin UI interfaces. We identified things that were working well and we wanted to bring in for inspiration, and then things that didn't work well and kind of learn our lessons from it. So I'm going to start with 7. 7 was the last major update of the Drupal admin UI before Claro was released. It also had some really big UX and UI updates. It was the default admin UI theme for both Drupal 7 and Drupal 8, and was the jumping off point for Claro. So Claro tried to build upon 7 and also intended to have some big UI and UX updates. But unfortunately, those UX updates were a bigger endeavor than was planned. So it was scaled back to just UI updates and restyling of existing components. And when I'm talking about restyling of existing components, I'm talking about like button styles, colors, typographic styles, all got a refresh while keeping most of the UI interface intact. And it's the default theme for Drupal 9. While Claro was being worked on, Jin spun off as a contrib theme. It was built on top of Claro, but because it was a contrib admin theme, it could make those UX updates much more quicker. Because of this, Jin also has a more modern UI because they were able to make those UX updates where Claro could not because Claro was being committed to core. And nowadays, Jin is the most popular contrib admin theme that is out there. So, and now we come to the project of updating the admin UI based on Claro. It started a couple years ago with the intention of applying changes to both the UX and UI of the core interface of Claro. But as I had mentioned earlier, halfway through the project, Starshot was announced, and because of that, our goals are changing, like they're quickly changing, so we can support that initiative. So it switched from a complete redesign of the admin UI to just creating a design system. But now our team is helping to create a design system specifically for Jin and building upon that. And as I'd mentioned earlier, a few weeks ago, the navigation for admin UI also got its own Starshot track. So our team is quickly shifting to help support that work too. This is an ongoing theme. So everything's been shifting so quickly that maybe the goals have changed. We were making a joke that hopefully the goals won't change mid-presentation because it would make this presentation obsolete, but I'm pretty sure they'll probably shift after a couple weeks after DrupalCon Europe, or DrupalCon Barcelona. So why are we all doing this? What's the reason Drupal needs a redesign and rethinking of the admin interface? Well, if you haven't heard, there's a lot happening in Drupal. There's a lot of initiatives and tracks supporting change and the modernization of Drupal. Jin also has a lot of momentum behind it. As I had mentioned earlier, it's the #1 contrib admin theme, and the design team often looks towards Jin for inspiration and ideas when working on the Drupal admin UI project. There's also this demand to step back, look around, and gather research to inform any design and UX decisions that are being made to help create an interface that's more focused on the users that use it day to day. And while all this is going on, the community has also been looking at how Drupal names and groups interface components, also called Drupalisms, with the goal of simplifying and using more plain language. So let's dive a bit deeper. Drupal is difficult for entry-level folks who don't have strong development skills, and the navigation is not an exception. I'm sure this is not news to anybody in this room. Dries had touched upon this in previous Dries notes, and there's been data released to the community that supports this. But on top of that, 65% of users customize the built-in toolbar with contrib modules. That's more than half the users. And that starts to tell us a story. Content and structure is difficult with the current toolbar. When our team had often was working on design for the admin UI, Christina would have to show us around some of the navigation, and we'd ask her questions about why something did something or why something was designed a certain way. And a lot of times it was kind of like a shrug, and it was like, that's just Drupal. Users also don't know if they're under the right section of the interface. So sometimes when you're in a specific area of the navigation or in the Drupal Admin UI, and you want to complete a task, you automatically get moved or shifted over to another area of the admin UI in order to complete that task. And that can be confusing to users. And also the look and feel of Drupal is outdated, which also includes the UX and UI of the toolbar. Because of this, and because of the new Drupal CMS initiative, there are a lot of community projects in the works to help make Drupal easier to use and to update the UX and UI so it has a more modern feel. These are the Drupal CMS tracks listed on the left-hand side here. I always want to say right because it's right for me, but I think it's left for you. But there are more projects going on outside of the Drupal CMS initiative, and I just wanted to take a step back and say thank you to everybody that has contributed time or is currently contributing time to make Drupal a better CMS. So work on the actual theme began many moons ago, roughly about 5 years. And I was surprised when I had talked to Christina about this because I was like, wow, this has been going on for 5 years. So it started with an exercise to see where and how elements could move around to increase the user experience and follow more modern conventions. And as you can see here, there was a lot of exploration of different placements of like the navigation, the top bar, and the right sidebar. It was kind of like putting together a puzzle. In the end, though, everybody seemed to agree that the toolbar followed more modern conventions on the left-hand side. It was more of what interfaces do today when it comes to specific navigation. And this spun off to be called what is known now as navigation module. There was actually a lot of research that was done behind the navigation. One of those research studies was a card sort to help the group understand how users thought about the categories and the navigation that was associated with it. This card sort was open to the entire community and it had a great result. Over 202 participants responded. And this is amazing when it comes to participants participating in a research study. Just want to say thank you to everybody that took the time to take the card sort or fill out the survey. But unfortunately, the card sort was inconclusive. It seemed like everybody wanted their own level of customization, and there wasn't a single right way to organize information that would fit users' mental models. Surprisingly, there was a pattern that kind of emerged with this card sort. Some people didn't even know what the current naming meant in the navigation, which leads to the confusion with the overall navigation interface. So as a user, a new user with Drupal, if you are trying to complete a task, it can be difficult if you don't know what those navigation titles mean. Another study that was conducted was a moderated remote and in-person testing comparing the current navigation with the new toolbar concepts. This is often called an A/B test. And there was a variety of different levels of participants who had participated with different levels of knowledge with Drupal. So some were very familiar with Drupal and some were unfamiliar with Drupal. Highlights of those results included that all participants preferred the new sidebar concepts over the current navigation. Less experienced users felt the nav was more familiar and followed more modern UI patterns that are out there. Users also preferred consistent placement of the sidebar. So in the current Drupal Admin UI, navigation is actually a top bar, and it switches to a sidebar depending on the screen width. And this can be confusing to users because they don't have control over when this happens. It was also easier to find different submenus under the new navigation when comparing it with the current navigation. And users had also mentioned that they liked that they could collapse the sidebar, giving them more screen real estate to work and focus at the task at hand. We also looked outwards towards other popular CMS interfaces to see how we could take inspiration and bring that inspiration into the Drupal Admin UI. Some of those interfaces included WordPress, Framer, Squarespace, with the idea of identifying things that they were doing well and identifying things that they didn't do so well. We also audited features, naming conventions, and stylistic choices. One of the big things that we kept in mind while we were doing all this work was Jen was already doing a lot of what we had wanted to bring into the admin UI redesign. It had a more modern approach, and it just felt more familiar when it came to a navigation. So the team used Jen to help generate ideas for improvements and kind of used it as a springboard where it informs the Drupal Admin UI interface. And I'm going to pass it off to Stephanie to talk more about that work.
Thank you, Jen. To fully tell the story of the admin UI redesign, we must also share the navigation work that's been intertwined with these efforts. Throughout this process, we continue to ask, what design changes can we make that will have a big impact and minimal dev implications? And how can we divide these into smaller tasks? The navigation provided a way that would allow the team to, make substantial visual impacts without overhauling the admin UI in entirety, and also allowing us to tackle it in smaller, more manageable pieces. And the work began with using interface category mapping to start organizing the layout and the flow of the user interface, redesigning the top bar and node right sidebar, and rethinking other areas of the interface, such as navigation integrations like workspaces, announcements, and umami message. The goals of the navigation work was to empower site builders to build the best solution for content editors, and make changes that would cater to main user personas, from site administrators to site builders and content users, and make adjustments that would support a more modern UI. As Jen mentioned earlier, much of this work has been like solving a puzzle, and to better understand how things fit together, the team used UI category mapping to start thinking about the overall experience. The aim of the UI mapping was to make navigation clear, intuitive, and efficient for users, assigning different tasks and settings to various quadrants of the UI. When paired with user journeys, the maps have been incredibly helpful as the team has worked to refine the UI. The mapping and reorganization help shift content and find consistent place for tasks and settings, moving local tasks to the top of the page, the left side navigation showing site-wide information, and having top bar be contextual to the page itself, and moving CTAs to the top. These goals resulted in a restructuring of the navigation. So, as we said before, to optimize screen space, the navigation was shifted to the left and expanded and could be expanded and collapsed. Items were rearranged and ordered to make more sense for the end user. The sidebar supports multiple menus and submenus with drawers, allowing site builders to customize menus for users with fewer resources, while also addressing the need for a more modern approach by incorporating icons, maximizing white space, and supporting a more mobile-friendly interface. These changes also took into account accessibility problems, such as poor contrast, confusing visual order, and missing icons in high contrast mode, semantics, and so on. Here's an example of the left sidebar navigation before and after our design explorations. It makes it easier to start to see the shift in the UI here. And more specifically, the updated use of icons, the section labels and vertical spacing, and the updated hierarchy of elements. Part of that work included right sidebar node, exploring its layout and organizing the visual hierarchy and content within the sidebar. Next, we'll refine the top bar and work closely with the Experience Builder team to ensure that our changes align seamlessly and avoid any conflicts, all to deliver the best user experience. Leveraging the new navigation, we've also played with concepts that put integrations such as workspaces into left sidebar navigation. This is an example of a more recent navigation exploration where we attempted putting forms in the menu to make workspace selections easier to manage. And even in our last working group, we changed this again. So it's just going to keep changing until we land somewhere. We're also exploring how announcements can be displayed in the navigation. In this concept, we're exploring where we can place new external icons, link icons, and integrations of timestamps all within the sidebar. You're probably wondering, how is this all getting done? And good question, still figuring it out myself, but mostly in the margins. And this might be where I start to embarrass Christina. Sorry, she's in the front row if you're looking for her. But much of the work can be attributed to Christina's dedicated work and leadership. Lullabot sponsored Christina for 6 months to do dedicated work on the Admin UI project, and now has sponsored additional dedicated time for her to continue as the UX lead for Starshot. Christina's engagement with the Drupal community has enabled her, alongside others, to identify areas of improvement and gaps in design support. Leveraging that design community within Drupal and Lullabot, she's gathered a working group to assist with new projects. Alongside Christina, a diverse group of designers have been finding time to squeeze in work between their full-time commitments, each with differing experience levels in Drupal, and Christina's continually showing patience as we pester her with questions about why the UI is as it is and the design choices. But really, we're using those whys as a springboard for improvement. The community she has built has provided to be a fresh set of eyes as we continue these new projects. And we want to say a big thank you to all who have dedicated time to this project. And we saved space on this slide for all the names, but because this project has been so ever ongoing and in and out between people who have time to commit, we couldn't put them all here. So we just put a fun Giphy instead. And as we mentioned, the work has been continuously evolving and now is focusing on the overall UI. In this shift, we've started to look at the ecosystem as a whole. Accounting for the new Drupal brand, which you probably saw in Dree's note yesterday, we're exploring ways to map this distinctive style to the new design system. To help the blending process, the team has held workshops to define the style, direction, and tone and voice of the system. To capture key input from, again, key Drupal stakeholders, Drupal Admin UI design experts, we also included them in the workshops where we utilize spectrums to define the style and map it to various attributes. For example, using words like tight and spacious, serious and playful, and then placing a pin where it fit on the spectrum. This helped create a clear comparison between the current and the future UI, while also assessing the overall brand position. A secondary workshop was voice and tone card sort. This gave an opportunity for individuals to sort and prioritize words that help define Drupal and the future of the Drupal CMS. Using this, not that statements, Meg, Lullabot senior contest strategist, she's up front here too, so I'll embarrass her as well, was able to provide clear examples of preferred and avoided styles and tones. The statements mentioned inclusive, not snobby or elite, playful and fun, not silly, modern and current, not trendy, accessible, not exclusive or expensive, approachable, friendly, welcoming, and not aggressive. The workshops were conducted simultaneously with our design system exploration. To lighten the lift of designing a new Figma design system from scratch, we first looked into open source options. We started with Radix, an open source design system, because the Experience Builder team was using it to theme Starshot. The hope was that by using Radix, it would simplify and streamline the process. As we started to map Radix to Gin, we quickly identified the differences in the system. Unfortunately, Radix didn't align with Gin in several key areas such as typography and a few areas in spacing, and was really not deemed a good fit. So we're back to scratch, so more time to commit. At present, the team is working to build a design system off of Gin, as it doesn't currently have a defined Figma file for the design system. We're working to standardize and define more color scales to unify the system. And Gin gives us a starting point for understanding how things work together, allowing us to identify areas of improvement as it integrates into Starshot. And this is where I hand it back to Jen to talk about what's next.
So this is a big question mark. But I can tell you right now, the team is going to continue to focus on getting Gin into the Drupal CMS. So we're going to try and support that initiative as much as we can. And right now we are working to help support the Figma design system that will be used to basically inform any updates that need to be completed. When we had also began this work with the Drupal Admin UI, it was prior to Dries announcing Drupal Starshot. And so when Drupal Starshot got underway, they wound up choosing Gin as the default admin theme, which it made sense. I mean, the team was using it so much for inspiration, and it was already built out. So our work had shifted to trying to help support that initiative, and as I'd mentioned before, building that design system. So right now, the two projects have kind of merged together. I predict that pretty shortly they are going to diverge again, maybe. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We are looking for help. So we are in a very design-heavy phase right now. So if you are a UX designer, a UI designer, or a researcher and want to get involved, highly recommend joining the Drupal Slack channel, starshot-ux-marketing, or you can see Christina, who's right in front, so you can help coordinate that. We also mentioned Gin a lot during this presentation. It was a big part of our process for getting inspiration and figuring out how things should work with the Drupal Admin UI project. And there are actually 2 sessions going on at DrupalCon Barcelona. There's a BOF, the Future of the Gin Admin Theme, which is happening Thursday. And Sasha is actually giving a presentation later today. The Gin Admin Theme Road Stable. Highly recommend that you attend those if you want to find out more about Gin. There's also other ways to contribute here at DrupalCon Barcelona. So if you're new to contribution, highly recommend joining the mentored contribution or the first-time contributor workshops that are happening here. And if you're a seasoned pro, there's also just general contribution sessions that you can join to contribute time to this project or to Drupal Starshot overall. So that's our presentation. It has changed a lot since we actually started this presentation. It's been a whirlwind to put together, and yeah.
We're going to celebrate now that it's over. So
Yeah. It was funny because we were like, hopefully Christina won't come to us like 2 hours before and be like, hey, so I got an update that we need to create a slide for. So we would love feedback on this presentation. We have a QR code that you can scan, or there's a link in the app that you can click, with the idea that the next time we give this, it'll probably be completely different because our goals will probably have shifted so much. It's been a process. But yeah, thank you for listening to our presentation. We have plenty of time for questions, and I'm just going to point out that some of those questions will be deferred to Christina, depending on how we can answer them, because she's in some of those higher level meetings. So if some of those questions are about like the future of what's happening, she may have more knowledge about that. But we'll, Stephanie and I, we're going to try and answer as much as we can. So.
There's no questions in the app.
Oh, okay.
So if anyone has questions,
Yeah.
If you could go to the microphone, please.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Gabriel. I have one question. Did I understand correctly, is the idea that Gin will move into the Drupal Starshot/CMS, or will continue to be as a contrib team?
Yeah, it will continue to move in, yes. She's like, I'm going to elaborate. Get up on the mic. Maybe we should get up. Sorry. Sorry, Christina.
It's a starshot. The starshot uses contrib modules. So contrib modules will still be a contrib, and starshot will be starshot, like a group of other contrib modules and a few other things. So it's going to be the two things at the same time.
Did you ever find an alternative for Radix?
No.
No, we're starting from scratch. So we're going through and analyzing and trying to compare, finding consistencies within the system and then making them.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank
that
you.
question.
Hi. Do you have a strategy for accessibility in the next steps? I know that the navigation was tested separately for accessibility, and it added some changes. And then with Gins, there are some issues with accessibility that have been documented. But what would they be fixed in Gin before it's merged into Admin UI, or will it be a process that kind of happens in the middle?
When we're building out our design system, I think we're always consistently looking for ways to improve accessibility. I don't think we would ever merge something that we felt, or not felt, but was not correct in terms of accessibility for contrast or maybe other elements that shouldn't be brought in. So those are all things that are being brought into question as well as we start to build that design system.
Sasha here, the maintainer of the Gen admin theme. We don't have any documented breaking things for accessibility. So if you have a list, I'm not aware of them. So you can get in touch with me so that we get aware of it and can fix it. That would be awesome. Thanks.
I have a small question. What's the ETA of the project of the redesign Starshot 2.0 or Drupal 11?
ASAP? I don't know. Yeah, I'm like, it feels like a big question mark on that one, unfortunately. This year, version 1. She's saying maybe. I don't We're hoping for the best. Yeah.
No other questions? I think we're good. Okay, if you do have questions, please seek us out. We are here all week, and so is Christina. So, sorry, Christina.
Thank you so much for your time. Have a good rest of your trip.